Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be talking a little more about my experience acting and doing the voiceover for my latest story of Frankenstein meeting an Arctic mermaid in part 2 of my Mermaids and Monsters Unbound story, which is being worked on as we speak. Of course, that's what this video is about. But I can step in here and it all just quiets down. The state of the union of Ghost in the Gaslight, where I'm at right now. And every now and then I get these epiphanies of what it's about. And this is one of those times that I thought I'd share. So follow me. Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. And we're going to be going into the VO booth again. I am going to be recording another epic voiceover for my new epic storytelling video, which is part 2 of my previous epic storytelling video, in which Frankenstein falls in love with a mermaid, and this one is going to be a bit different. The first one, I think part 1 is a little more on the meditative side. It's almost dreamlike, and this one is a little more, I don't know, maybe a little more on the swashbuckling side, which is, it was a grand experiment and I really enjoyed doing it. And I'm very curious to see how it's going to come out in terms of the performance of it. But just, you know, a quick rundown. I was pretty much starting my Substack, and Substack really started to change how my stories turned out, in that I started making them more long form, and I started doing a little more the kind of first person point of view. So it was almost kind of bloggy in a way, which was really fun, and you could just kind of live in the characters more. And there was almost an exercise like, what if I was this character and they were keeping a blog, which was actually kind of how Ghost in the Gaslight started. It was like, what if Charles Dickens or Oscar Wilde, or Poe kept a blog. And that was kind of the original project. And then it just took me all these different places. And it was kind of neat to just kind of come full circle to that exercise with Substack, where I started doing with characters. And this particular story took me in so many places that it was too long for one post. And so I split it into 2. And unfortunately, I came to this realization after I had spent over a month making this painting. So I wasn't going to feature this painting as the illustration for part 2. I needed to make another painting for it. So the good news is I was in such a zone steeped in the world of these 2 characters of Frankenstein and the Arctic Mermaid that I sat down. I had this image in my head. Before I knew what was happening, I already had the pencil sketch, and then I had the painting, and I think I did the whole thing in about 3 hours. It was pretty cool, and I love this little piece, and I'm excited to make this this second part. And I've been kind of dreading it because it is a little more, I think in some ways it's a little more work, but you never know. That could translate to something easier. But maybe I'll just share a little bit what it's like in there. And yeah, I mean, what the hell? Come on in, check it out. It's, you know, kind of a happy place in here where I, you know, basically, I've got I'll have my setup there for recording voice. And then I've got my mic here, which I'll probably move it around. I'll probably switch it with my little candle thing. And then I've got my headset, and then I've got this the story set on my iPad with this scrolling app. So that's kind of how the magic happens, and it's really fun. I just love the way this little abode that I've made just kind of contains my voice right when I step in. No matter what's happening out there in the world, and there's a lot these days, and believe me, I'm always watching it like a hawk. Some of you may know that. But I can step in here and it all just quiets down. It's a beautiful thing. Exciting. Anyways, fun sharing all this. I'll probably have a little more to say. But for now, I gotta go work. Should we go for a take? We'll go for a take. All right. There is always something exciting about a moonlit deck of a ship. The sound of the waters merge in symphony with the creaking of the wood, the pull and stretch of the rigging, and the miraculous ticking of the masts. The only thing more exciting than that is boarding a ship where you are not supposed to be, lest the crew spot you and cut your throat. Whew, okay, well, that was about a 40-minute long take that I just did. Whew. Takes a lot out of you. I think I'm going to pass out, and then I'm going to edit this thing early morning. So that's one of the experiments I've been doing. I try to cut a deal with the night owl because he will wreak havoc on my week. So I try to just, find a good stopping place and go, hey man, now let's do this when we're fresh. I promise I'll get up early if we do that. So that's been kind of the experiment, and so far it has been working pretty well. So yeah, this was kind of a big step to do. I'm going to edit that. I've pretty much got most of the video edited, so I'm going to put that in the computer. I've got to film the haunted host portion, and that's kind of the last complicated thing before I get into the music, which is pretty much the big thing. So I don't know. We'll see if I can do this quicker. Hopefully, what I'm hoping for is that I'm in a zone after having accomplished part 1. So I'm gonna attempt to do the magic with part 2, though part 2 is longer by I think maybe 10 minutes or so. So yeah, here we go. Pretty exciting though. Anyways, night night. Well, it's the next day, and that little recording took a lot out of me. And like I said, it's a 40-minute take, which will have, it'll be edited down. I'm thinking maybe the vocals. I'm sorry about the sounds. I'm just breaking down all these boxes. a lot of hats. And by the time I finished that recording, it was just like, okay, it is time for bed. So I am going to be editing that as soon as I post this video. And I just, wanted to check in because, I was originally just going to talk a little bit about a little more of the process of it. Because I think that I share the process of the drawing a lot. I share the process of the writing sometimes, or what it takes. But I think that it's very interesting when I'm acting something that I've written. And this was always a rule when I was working on scripts or developing scripts. I never wanted to write my own lines. So if I was working on a project that I was maybe going to be in, and I had my writing partner, many times, often it was the great Alan DeRosa. Hey, Alan, if you're seeing this. But part of the deal was I really didn't want to work on the dialogue that a character I was going to play was doing. I really wanted to hand things off to him. And part of that is because when I'm acting, I want the challenge of completely trying to find the interpretation that someone else wrote. Because otherwise, I'm putting on my writer hat while I'm acting. And it's a whole thing that I always viewed as it didn't necessarily help my acting. I always wanted to sharpen my ability to interpret a script given next to no clues about what was actually being intended by the writer. If any of this makes sense, you know, I'm just riffing on a very important exercise or a very important practice that I really cared about. And I find myself on the total other end of the spectrum now. I still believe what I just told you, but with this, I'm embarking in this other kind of world of complete self-production. And who knows, maybe down the line, I team up in some way with people. I find another writer, or I enlist another actor, or I work with another artist. But I think it is really fascinating to write your own work, you know, paint it, and then do a little performance. And I think what's been really interesting with doing the voiceover for Mermaids and Monsters Unbound is that this was a project that I wrote almost a year ago. And in many ways, I think that I am far enough removed from where I was coming from when I wrote it, where it actually has this kind of mystique. I almost feel like I'm a different person a year later. I cram so much in a year that sometimes that really happens. And it's been really fun to just kind of unearth, you know, who I am now. I mean, I think I'm like 70 or 80 vlog episodes this year alone. And whereas last year I was mostly focusing on my Substack, and I still am, which, by the way, any of the videos that aren't vlogs, that are my stories, you can find on my Substack. You can find them here too, but the nature of YouTube, where I'm basically not supposed to tell people who aren't on YouTube that it's there, which I'm kind of realizing now. So I don't hype my YouTube into any social media. But I was really freaking out because so much of my system, my emails, my news, my notifications and stuff was meant to be, I'll put all this work into my little YouTube film productions and then bring people over there. But apparently that totally screws up the YouTube algorithm, which I think is an algorithm worth learning. I personally don't feel that way about Instagram. I'm on Instagram. I don't even bother with TikTok, because in the end, they all kind of have to do the same thing to get you monetized, which is you get monetized by a venture that you are going to make, not necessarily by the social media company giving you the money. The best example to shoot for would be Google AdSense, but like to partner with them on the ads, to partner with YouTube on the ads. But for the most part, I mean, I have seen dastardly numbers of influencers on Instagram, and they show me these videos that get millions and millions of views. I feel like I sound like Trump. Billions and billions and billions and billions. But they get millions and millions and millions of views, and then they show what Instagram paid them. And it amounts to like 27 cents. So all of these are saying, hey, we're putting new things in there for influencers to get paid. And then they tell people how many millions or billions that people got paid. And they don't tell you how many influencers that is. They don't tell you the rate, that the average that they were getting paid, or any of that. So the point of that is that I think the YouTube AdSense is worth trying for.
but B, all of them are functioning as reach for you to get people into an enterprise you have. Maybe you're selling classes, maybe you're like me and you're selling artwork, and eventually books. And that is the main way that you get monetized, and you are going to use Instagram or YouTube to send people over to you. I mean, that's kind of it. Anyways, the whole reason that I'm kind of talking about this is, well, I don't quite remember. Okay, so I remember why I went into all of that with YouTube. And part of that was because I was talking about how I'm a different person now doing all these vlogs. Last year around this time, I was leaning into Substack, which is all about long form writing. And that really changed how I write, which I had kind of mentioned, earlier. But I think that those people are so different that it almost seems to feel, as I'm recording it, like I am starting over and this is kind of a stranger who wrote this story. And I'm very much a fan of the story. There were a couple little, grammatical rewrites that went into both parts of Mermaids and Monsters Unbound. But for the most part, I've felt like I've gotten to interpret this and act it, which is pretty cool. And I might riff on this next point for another video, but it is kind of coming up, which is, it's not easy what I'm doing. We're in a world that is constantly like we want almost to be spoon-fed messages and narratives and information, i.e. being addicted to the news, what's on, and maybe not having as much time to watch a film that makes you that draws you into an emotional story, that makes you think, that is not necessarily aligned overtly with any kind of political agenda. Like, unlike every Marvel movie these days, it used to be you went and you watched a comic book movie and you got to be a kid again. Now, they just completely changed like what the source material is, and it's overtly a political message. And it's like, we were supposed to go to the movies to escape. And in that escapism, we could enjoy a moral to the story. And it kind of united us as people. Like, we would all be going to the same movie and we could talk about that movie. What did you get from the story? What did you get? But now it's so overt that it just starts alienating huge swaths of people. We're so divided. It's no wonder Hollywood is crashing in flames. They got completely political. They got completely owned by I would say the Democrat Party, probably from the time of the Clintons in the 90s. I would say that was the beginning of it. And over time, Hollywood just became this strange propaganda arm, and they just all, and maybe it started with Bob Geldof or Bono, where a celebrity, it was no longer enough to just be a celebrity. You had to have this insane platform of activism, and it just has percolated all over where we are. And I certainly have my tendencies on that, but I think that with Ghost in the Gaslight, it's been to just kind of go back to story and just make it about plumbing the depths of mythology and history, fairy tales, folklore, and letting that churn around in me and giving it out to you. And you take of it what you will, but you get to take of it what you will. It's not really hitting you on the head with some kind of thing. And also, it's meant to be Ghost in the Gaslight, whether it's on YouTube or Rumble or Substack. I might do Rumble. But it is meant to be a place where you can go and you can be entertained. You can be provoked to think of the world in a different way, or lore, or whatever, or some kind of magical creature or symbolism in a way that you want to, and with little to no help from AI. I believe that's what I would like to see happen. I mean, AI art is everywhere. AI animations are everywhere. And I will say it's nice to see some of these animation apps coming out. I would love to, do a little animation at some point. But I think that we are already weary of seeing AI art, AI animation, AI writing everywhere. And I think that AI is a wonderful tool. I think it's going to really help creatives in many ways, as long as it doesn't take the place of the creative process, But that is, I think, what this project, Ghost in the Gaslight, is about. I started it thinking it was going to be about, like, the world is moving so fast and futuristic and modern and technologically intense. It's just very technocratic everywhere. Let me use this technology with my tactile abilities or drawing and writing and acting to beam out and just share what I feel are, feelings of value or projects of value, principles of value to people out there. And let me use it for some kind of like spirituality, some practice. And that's kind of what drives a lot of this. And sometimes I feel I'm not sure where it's going, but it always seems to prove to me that there is something of its own volition that is propelling me. And I would credit that in some ways to, at every major turning point for Ghost in the Gaslight, in terms of its mutation, its evolution, there's always been a crossroads, and I have really respected that fork in the road, and really deliberated. I have planted myself at that fork and just studied both ways and envisioned myself going down the road and going, is this what I want to commit myself to? Or is this what I want to commit myself to? And the point of that is that at its core, Ghost in the Gaslight has something that is always constantly fulfilling to me, that I've been able to commit to it. And it just seems to always be there because it was well thought out. And I always cite this. There's that film, The Social Network, and all those advertisers are leaning on Zuckerberg, and because they've put all this money into the Facebook, it was called the Facebook, and they keep trying to go, okay, now let's do the advertising. And he says, look, I mean, MySpace did that. MySpace, I think that's in the movie, but MySpace buckled to advertisers too early, and then the advertisers took it over, and then it just sucked. And he kept saying, we don't know what this is yet. We don't know what this is yet. And then what happens? He finally figures out what to do with the data they've been collecting, and then they're able to turn it into personalized advertising. And it's the greatest advertising platform out there now. And in every venture that I've really cared about since I saw that movie, and a lot of people might have had different takeaways from that movie, but my takeaway was that moment, he always had that moment of truth, and he always chose to say, we don't know what this is yet. He dared to say that to his advertisers. I'm not saying that I'm making the next Facebook. No, thank you. I could, but I'm not going to. I'm saying that because at every level of this little project, I've made that little understanding with myself, because I never wanted to go into Ghost in the Gaslight and then one day go, why am I doing this? I didn't like this. This sucks. This is depressing. There are things that are hard about it, but that's part of being an artist or a writer, you know, and you're constantly creating and trying to make something new. That part's a challenge, but it is fulfilling. And I think as I go into this deeper and deeper rabbit hole of ways to tackle a project, express these stories that I've got in me, I find some new character in there, like my voiceover side, who is interpreting, you know, a story that's going to go on the Substack, that's going to go on right here on YouTube. And I learn another part of myself. And I keep learning continually that no matter what is happening out there, I get to come back here and I get to make something. I get to make something. And you get to see it. And you get to let me know your thoughts. You get to experience it. You get to hate it. You get to love it. You get to maybe like it. And that was something that we just got to make together. Despite everything else that's happening, despite whoever's being attacked by whoever, or despite whatever scandal is being uncovered, like, never mind. You get to come here and you get to be in this world with me. And we get to dance, we get to play and rediscover this other realm, or be reminded of this other realm that's always there around us. And I think that is great value for strength. It replenishes the reserves. And for a brief moment, we are made whole again. And we get to begin again. And tomorrow is a new day. And maybe more crazy stuff will happen out there. Maybe more magical stuff will happen in here. But it's important to recharge. It's important to challenge yourself. It's important to embark on that crazy venture that you're doing. I don't know of anything more important than that. Well, raising kids probably. But making sure that that crazy idea you have doesn't fall through the cracks. You never know. It might have you in the frozen Arctic playing Frankenstein, falling in love with an Arctic mermaid. Okay, that's the best thing. That is the best thing. And I get to do it. All right, well, back to work. I hope you enjoyed this video. Ghostinthegaslight.com. You can check out my artwork. You can check out my swag. I got cool coffee mugs. I got hoodies. I got sweatshirts, pillows. Get yourself a Ghost in the Gaslight pillow. They're so cozy and ghostly and fun. And get yourself a Ghost in the Gaslight print. All right, well, that's enough. Hope you enjoyed this video. There's one coming along right here. So check it out.